I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, this is Christine Barton. You're watching Black T News. Hello, welcome to Black T News. I'm your host, Christine Barr, today we're going to be talking about the breaking news of Donald Trump deciding to back off of the tariffs and will increase still like with China because they decided to retaliate. So they're pushing hard with China, but there's going to be a 90-day pause on the tariffs that you wanted to impose with everybody else and taking them down and stuff anyway. So they're taking the off ramp, and some people are like, oh my gosh, this is what he planned the whole entire time, and including like Besant was saying that too, or Treasury Secretary. But Donald Trump also was asked about it, and he's like, yeah, I was watching the stock market and the bonds weren't looking great, and so people were looking queasy. So it just seems like he just kind of relented, and now his surrogates get to go around and save face. But whatever the case is, folks seem to be happy about it, but because I had some stories to read and talk about. I mean, I can allude to them, but I knew the news changes so fast. But there was a lot of business owners who've been voicing their concerns online, and so I don't think it would have been good if there wasn't this off ramp, but I'm glad that he's taking it. Anyway, before we jump into everything, we have other topics that I also want to touch on. There was the Vivek thing we didn't get to yesterday. There's a video also that I wanted to talk about. I don't think we talked about it yesterday. If I did, I know I talked about it on TikTok, but I don't think I talked about it with you guys, about Hostin Metcalf and someone saying that they I think we did maybe touch on it, but I want to talk about some of the reactions that I got to it. It's a short video, so we can watch it again. But because there's people was leaving crazy comments in my videos about what I said in reaction to it. So I want to talk about that. And Sonny Hostin said some crazy things about voter ID and how we need it for people who are old and poor and can't get one, and et cetera, just a bunch of silly stuff. So there's a lot of things I want to touch on, but you guys can go to blacktnews.com, check out different content, website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream on my site, all the good stuff. So you guys can support it. Very much appreciate it and appreciate you guys. Thank you to those of you watching live and to those of you who watch back later. And those of you who are, leaving comments and chit-chatting with each other, all that stuff does help and it boosts. So thank you. You guys can check out different merchants available at blacktnews.com as well. And I have books that you guys can check out that are available on Amazon. There's a link in the description for watching on Facebook and YouTube. That'll take you to a page where you can see some of the stuff. You guys can get my things on paperback or on ebook. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, most of my books are also available that way as well. I promise as long as you flip through those pages, I will get something for them. My nonfiction books aren't available for Kindle Unlimited. You do actually have to purchase those, but lots of options to choose from. RC says the Dems are mad because they lost their talking points. It's kind of funny because the Democrats are... we're kind of fighting each other a little bit. Like Whitmer said something, who's my governor, unfortunately. She's like, oh, it's been really hard, but I do see the benefit in tariffs and things, and then there's other folks who are like, no, tariffs are bad. And so there's some chatter there So that's another reason why I think that like we need to get a handle of like this power for implementing the tariffs, because if someone else that you didn't like was doing these things and someone else you didn't trust was doing all these things, I think you'd be pulling out your hair and then demanding that Congress take action and limit their powers, and that's not the scope of their powers and so on. So I would um argue that we do need to, you know, limit this, because God forbid if someone like Kamala was at the helm, or Whitmer. Um, but yeah, they are gonna be a bit lost. They've been lost. It's so interesting. Because some of them were talking about like small businesses and losing money, and tariffs making prices go up and other things like that. But the Democrats are very protectionist too. So a lot of criticisms that they're having aren't coming from a non-hypocritical place. Just like I mentioned the other day, Kamala Harris was talking about Trump on the campaign trail, like on the debate stage, like, hey, tariffs are bad. And he's like, if they're bad, then why did your administration like add tariffs? So valid rebuttal, very valid rebuttal. So there's not a lot of principled people in this business, unfortunately. There's just not. There just is not. So anyway, let's start with the tariffs first. And this news just like is so fast. Like I was listening to some of Ben's show, like I think by the time 2 o'clock, it wasn't even 2 o'clock, and his show like wasn't even relevant anymore. Because he's like, what's gonna happen, like well, they chose the off ramp. That's what happened. They chose to pause the tariffs. And so everything is just moves so fast in Trump world. And last night this morning I was reading different posts from different small business people, or people who knew small business people. Bill Ackerman like had a post about some people he's investing in some of their companies, with coffee, for example, how they were going to be impacted by tariffs. And then another company talking about how they're going to maybe have to go under. There's this one guy who does like specialized like tabletop toys. He's been interviewed by I think CNN, and there was an article in the New York Post talking about how his prices were just significantly skyrocketing, and and trying to contemplate how they're going to survive when some of these tariffs are about to be implemented. And Mr. Beast said something as well last night. Mr. Beast, let me see if I retweeted it or if I just liked it. I tried to save a lot of things last night. He was talking about how it's expensive to make his chocolates more expensive to make his chocolates in the US with the tariffs. And he said he'll be okay, like he'll figure out how to survive. But he said a lot of small businesses will be hit. And Mr. Beast you might be like, who the heck is Mr. Beast? If you don't know who Mr. Beast is, he's like the number one YouTuber, and he does a lot of those challenges, like, can you stay in a grocery store for 200 days and you'll win $1 million, and shenanigans ensue. And so can you protect this pile of money as I throw flaming cars your way? Like, just some of them are really bizarre. Amazon had his Beast games and other things like that, but he's a huge YouTuber. He also does a lot of work giving back to folks as well, and makes content about that too. And he has I think he has like drinks too, but he has Beast Bar chocolates, which I've never had, and I don't know how well they taste, because I remember Keith Lee, I think, tried them. And Keith Lee is a TikToker, like food influencer, who goes to places and he tries foods, and people just love him, and he just does his review, and and then the places just kind of explode with business. So Mr. Beast had reached out to him, and he didn't really care for his chocolate that much. So I don't know how good they are. I don't think Keith Lee is like too into sweet stuff anyway, but I don't know. Chocolate's kind of hard to get right. One time I tried a DW's chocolate, Jeremy's chocolate, and it just it wasn't amazing. It definitely couldn't replace the Hershey bar, but he wrote, uh, ironically, because of all the new tariffs, it is now way cheaper to make our chocolate bars we sell globally, not in America, because other countries don't have a 20% tariff on our cogs. By the way, we pay our farmers a living income, use fair trade certified beans, etc. So I was already spending a lot on cacao, but a random price hike was pretty brutal. We'll figure it out. I feel for small businesses, though, could really be a nail in the coffin for them. And so a lot of people were there's some people, mocking him or upset that he mentioned something or weighed in, but he makes content, but he does have a business, and he was just voicing the truth of the matter, and he wasn't the only one. So as I was reading different stories, I'm like, this isn't gonna be good. um and especially thinking about like different ads and video packages and things that the Democrats would put together if they were smart, which they're not terribly smart, but Fox News ran the story. I think this is about the tabletop toy guy.
There's an item in the New York Post that we all have in front of us. It's an exclusive story, and it talks about how with these 104% tariffs that went into effect, we think that China is going to have to pay for it, but it tells a story of a special needs toy importer. And when the tariffs went into effect at midnight, his tariff, he's been paying a tariff because he gets stuff from China, $26,000 a year. His tariff bill went from $26,000 at midnight to $346,000. And that's money he's going to have to come out of his pocket. It sounds like he's going to have to go ahead and close down part of his business. He tried to make the toys in the United States, but the tariff on that, his most popular item, went from $0 to $17 at midnight. And what he told the New York Post is people don't understand the tariff situation. They think just foreign countries are paying for the tariffs. That's not true. Half of the tariffs are being paid for by US-based companies. Yeah. So when you look at the big numbers and they look good, just remember that according to this guy, half of the small businesses and half of the tariffs are being paid by Americans.
Well, yeah. So I don't know. A lot of people just had in their mind that a lot of Americans wouldn't be paying, or that some people are just kind of like, screw you. You shouldn't get stuff from other places, and everything should just be made in-house. And for some businesses, it's just not feasible. There's just things we don't grow here. We don't have the immediate infrastructure for, and so on and so forth. So I'm disappointed by a lot of the commentary that's been going on the right, by a lot of influencers, which I've talked about the past couple days. And I've thought a lot of the lack of compassion and sympathy for people as they, I don't know, start losing their retirement and their income and their businesses, just isn't great. Again, Trump lost suburban white women like in 2028 in those midterms. And a lot of Trump folks didn't want to hear that they had a suburban white woman problem and a problem with women and stuff as far as the voter base. And he did. And at the root of it, a lot of people just thought he was too mean. And a lot of that, I think, was driven by a lot of the propaganda and news and stuff surrounding the border issue. And now a lot of people are like, know what it's like with an open border and how incompetently ran it was with the Democrats. So they're like, oh, well, Trump was right about that stuff. So, deport the people and so on. They've given more leeway with that, but being mean about the business stuff and uncaring and unfeeling about it, that's not good. And so a lot of these people, I don't know, they're so in it for clicks and validation, but some of their commentary just does not serve Trump. Like a couple weeks ago, I mentioned how some of these guys were uplifting Andrew Tate. And I'm like, having Andrew Tate in Trump's sphere is not a good thing. Alina Hababa, is it Haba? But Trump's lawyer, she was on Benny Johnson's show, and she was talking about like, oh, I'm a fan, like I love her stuff. And people were mad. Like, don't you know that he's a pimp and he ran a cam business and that he's beaten women, and he says even the most terrible things about women now. How can you be a fan of him? And Benny, don't you consider yourself to be a Christian? How are you uplifting him? And when people criticize him, he's like, oh, you guys are coming against free speech. Like, no, you can have him on, but why are you slobbering all over him? Why aren't you asking him like relevant, tough questions about his cases? Candace Owens had him on a show, and it was like a fluffy sort of interview. So repeatedly. So that, I mean, they do these things for fame and clicks and attention, and people talk about them. And then when you talk about it, they're like, oh, you don't like free speech? Like, no, we like free speech, but we're exercising our free speech by talking about you. We're all engaging in free speech. We're just using ours to call you out. And then more information about Andrew Tate came out. And then Alina eventually had to be like, oh no, people were taking me out of context. No, we didn't. You just are embarrassed that you were on that show. But Benny should have known better. You should have known better too, but Benny should have known better. So I don't, so many of these people don't service him well, and don't service the Republican Party well, conservatives well. They don't. And I don't know what to do about them, man. I don't know what to do about them. Someone said they were from where? Christine Hayes is from where in New York? Hello there. I'm like, where is that? Haven't heard of that city before. I'm not gonna embarrass my that's a real place. I looked it up. I just have no idea how to say it. shout out to everybody again watching live. But anyway, there's a lot of bad stuff I think was coming. So anyway, Donald Trump announced that he was pausing on these tariffs. So he said, based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charge to China by the United States of America by 125%, effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. Conversely, and based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representatives of the United States, including the Departments of Commerce, Treasury, and the USTR, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, and non-monetary tariffs, and that these countries have not, at my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way, shape, or form against the United States, I have authorized a 90-day pause and substantially lowered the reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So he decided to up it on China, lower the reciprocal tariffs down to 10, but I'm assuming there's still pause for the 90 days, so none. It's a little unclear still, but a lot of people are like, he's taking the off ramp And then there's a lot of people like, oh, 4D chess, 64D chess, and this was always the plan. He's the master art of the deal. Oh my gosh. When there's been so many folks talking about we have to have the long-term pain. We're going to bring it back. All this manufacturing, even like making t-shirts from Taiwan. We're taking that business back. And the tariffs is gonna, all the money from the tariffs is gonna make us so much money. That's how we're gonna fund the government. We're gonna get rid of income taxes. So I don't think anyone knew what that plan was. And frankly, Scott Bessent is saying like that, oh, I talked to Trump and this is all along. But that's not the rhetoric that has been going on. We've been talking about the rhetoric from Trump and the rhetoric from like Peter Navarro. It sounds like Elon, or rather Scott Bessent, and that he won, that angel on Trump's shoulder won rather than the devil on his shoulder. That was Peter Navarro. And it's funny. Let me play Scott first, and then I'll play what Trump actually said when he was asked about why he decided to back off.
And all this was, again, this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. And that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors, and we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well. And all this.
Okay, so don't move when we punch you in the face. That's all we ask. Okay. Stay still and take your beating, and those of you who behaved will be rewarded. Okay, so if the goal was let's get everyone in the world to gang up on China, and they're talking about they want everybody else to implement like tariffs against China and to box them out, we didn't need Liberation Day to make that happen. And you could say we did because it got put pressure on people. You could say it put pressure, but it also, I mean, it's not like other people weren't talking about retaliating. People were thinking about it. The EU was thinking about it. Other folks were talking about it and doing it. Yes, there's a lot who didn't want that, were willing to cut deals and so on. But they were even talking about, like, even if they cut deals, that they got the it down to zero, their rates down to zero, or even their deficits down. I don't know how. They still wouldn't say like, oh yeah, we're going to get rid of our tariffs. It was, I don't know, a lot of bravado, but the truth of the matter is that Donald Trump just they were probably talking to him about this for days and giving him kind of conflicting opinions. Bessent about what he wanted, Navarro about what he wanted. And I think Trump was probably more instinctually leaning towards Navarro, like maybe they have a mentality that is similar, but Bessent, it was the more practical figure. Like, this is too much at once. Like, this is not going to be good for the markets. This isn't going to be good for small businesses. This isn't going to be good. Free trade is better. And this is going to be bad for midterms. I'm sure there was those kind of conversations going on with Trump. And when he looked at the markets, Bessent just made the most sense.
About why you decided to put a 90-day pause.
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, they were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions, because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents, they wouldn't have done it. And it had to be done. What was happening to us on trade, not only with, if you look at it, not only with China, but China was by far the biggest abuser in history.
Markets that persuaded you to
reverse
No, I
course?
was watching the bond market. The bond market is very tricky. I was watching it, but if you look at it now, it's beautiful. The bond market right now is beautiful. But yeah, I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy. I think everything had. Well, the big move wasn't what I did today. The big move was what I did on Liberation Day. We had Liberation Day in America. We were liberated from all of the horrible deals that were made, all of the horrible trade deals that were made. And I was helped by people just like this, senator, congressman, and friends, right? And we had great help in the Senate. Our Republican senators have been amazing. They stood tall. And likewise in the House. And John.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think someone asked, did Trump get scared? He will he's not totally unreasonable. I think people have obviously been discussing this stuff with him for days. I think the bond market was probably like the final thing, like, but I don't know. Again, the sort of stories that I was reading about last night and different very billionaires, millionaires were sharing these stories that were being amplified about different businesses that were about to go under. And then there was polling that folks weren't happy about the tariffs either, like CNN. You may roll your eyes because I said CNN, but you know, they had good polling with him and people being in favor of this stuff in January, and they, and people are like, oh my gosh, yes. So now they're saying they're not feeling it.
They hate him. They hate him, and it's going in the wrong direction. I mean, look at this. Trump's tariff deal. You go back to January, it's 48% who favored, 46% who opposed, so slightly more who favored than opposed. Look at where we are now in April. 54% opposed, 42% favor. Opposition's going up, favors going down. This, bottom line, is a political loser for Donald Trump, and he is losing the messaging battle on this. Americans might have been a little open to the idea of tariffs coming into this administration, but since then, their opposition through the roof, Kate Baldwin.
We've heard from a lot of people that Donald Trump's supporters, they have more of an appetite to feel pain for longer than maybe when you're looking at the broader electorate. That is, for one thing, that we have definitely heard. On the question, though, that we've heard more and more growing fears that this could all lead to a recession. Some CEOs saying they think we're already in one. What are you hearing about that?
Yeah, so this is interesting, right? We've been talking about Wall Street, and we've been talking about whether what happens on Wall Street is an indication of what will happen on Main Street. And take a look here. These are recession chances, chance of a recession, according to JP Morgan. In early March, it was already 40%. Look at where it is now, 60%, a majority. How about Goldman Sachs? In early March, it was 20%. Look at where we are now, 45%. At best case at this point, it seems to me, at least according to the experts, the chance of a recession is 50-50 when you average it all together. What is happening on Wall Street, at least at this particular point, has a pretty good chance of spilling into Main Street. And those folks who are thinking those tariffs are just something that are happening down in the stock exchange in New York City aren't coming to them. They may be in for a rude awakening.
Yeah. So, and people were doing rhetoric like, oh, even I think Besant said things like, oh, well, Wall Street has won for so long, and now it's time for Main Street, as if this guy isn't like a Wall Street dude. It's what's always kind of interesting when they go that route. But no, this stuff was going to affect Main Street very hard. So I think he just saw the writing on the wall, needed to pivot. And as long as they can get we made tough deals. We were tough. They responded. We made good deals. America is winning because they're coming to the table and they're going to renegotiate different practices and things that we cared about. And so this was a good thing. We won. Liberation Day was great because it was about putting the hands back into the American worker, and we're doing things for the American worker. We win, whatever. And we're all going against China. I don't think you needed to go the route that he went to do what happened. And I absolutely do not think that it was all according to plan. And Trump kind of let it be known that I was watching stuff and I decided, So he seems to be more honest than his surrogates about the state of affairs. I mean, Trump watches TV. He watches the news, and he will say things on the fly, make up policy on the fly. RC mentioned that the tariff bill is dead. I'm assuming that's the one like with I know Rand Paul was talking about it, but there's someone else who it is a bipartisan bill to try to limit that power that Trump said he was going to veto. I don't know if it's dead. I mean, there's no if they're really not going to do anything. I mean, he just said a 90-day pause, so there's still reason to enact it. And I'm still of the opinion that we probably should. But I wonder how much chatter there could have been about that possibly getting the support and Trump needing to veto it, like if it could get to his desk. And because I think that would not have gone well for him, like politically. It just would have been a bad look. So they probably wanted to squash that. So there's a lot of moving parts for sure. But I'm relieved for now. I'm relieved for now. I was talking to someone the other day about these tariffs because they called me to talk about Michigan news, and we have a lot of people who are about to run for governor. John James, Congressman John James, is running for governor, and there's other people who've already announced, and there's other people who are going to announce, and we're gonna have a very crazy primary, I'm sure. I don't know how many people is gonna get on the ballot or whatever. But it's gonna be a crazy, very busy season. And I was just like, looking at this tariff situation, how it's going right now, I said we're gonna get wiped out. And we were talking about how bad things could be because of it. So I'm relieved that there was this change of course. And people are like, just trust Trump, just Trump. I trust that he's not an unreasonable man. And sometimes he needs to hear you need to change course. That's people just trusting that like the man doesn't make mistakes. I lived through 15 days to slow the spread. Didn't you? That's what they told us. It was his administration when they started that, was it not? And I know hindsight is 2020. I never thought we should shut down because that didn't make sense to me. I'm like, if we're slowing the spread, aren't we prolonging the virus? And I know he was listening to his experts. I know he was concerned. He was concerned about how the media was portraying him and causing panic, and he was trying to not cause panic. And but he would tweet out "Liberate Michigan" and then tell like Georgia, "You're opening too fast." So there was he made mistakes. He's not infallible. And I can't pretend like he is. So everybody's like, just trust him, just trust him, just trust him. I just can't follow the cult of personality. I'm not saying that everybody who's deciding to trust him is, but I know a lot of people it's down to that. But a lot of times he's right. He can have some really good instincts, but I'm just relieved. I'm just relieved. I do want to point out something else, like from one of these influencers, Jack Posobiec. He had retweeted this, be the 17%, talking about Trump's presidential power is 53% say he's right, he has the right amount or too much. He has the right amount or too little power. And 47% said too much, the right amount, 36%, too little, 17%. So Jack is saying be the 17%. And so if you're saying that he has too little power right now, if you're saying Trump has too little power, presidential power, you're saying that Biden had too little presidential power. You're saying that if Kamala Harris had won, then she would have had too little presidential power. The same power that he has is going to belong to someone else. Republicans, I don't care how well they did in the election, and it was impressive winning every swing state, how many counties flipped his way. You know, I was there that night. It was very exciting. Very exciting being in my watch party with folks. I'm very happy that I won. Okay. And he did win the popular vote, which was incredible. Not by a lot, but he won it. You know, we haven't won the popular vote in like 20 years. And so good stuff. Amazing. But if Republicans have it in their minds that they're not going to lose again because the Democrats are so insane, they shouldn't overestimate. I'm sorry, they shouldn't underestimate their ability to screw things up, to upset their base, and to just make bad decisions, you know? So they can very easily lose, and the pendulum does usually swing. Stuff usually goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth anyway. Like, unless they're like just stellar the whole entire time, it's likely that the next president is probably going to be a Democrat. I don't want that to be the case, but Republicans have to really just hit it out of the park if they want to maintain control. But there, at some point in time, there will be a president who's going to not be Republican. So if you're saying that the president needs more power, just know that you're giving more presidential power to the Democrats. So I want to play a game, or I think everybody should play a little game when things like this happen. And the game is called, how would you feel if it was the other party? If Kamala Harris was president, he would not be saying be the 17%. You would not be saying that. You would not be saying that. Let's face it, nobody likes the Democrats, and that's why they wanted the economy to fail. Well, I don't know. People seem to people liked Joe Biden enough until Afghanistan. And that was like the crack in the picture, or the statue, or whatever, the veil torn or whatever. People started to see through his, like, he's a cool grandpa who wears aviators and likes his ice cream and rides in cool cars and doesn't take any crap or whatever perception they had of Joe Biden just fizzled out, because they're like, oh my gosh, he's actually incompetent and very old, and and lives were on the line, and we thought he was like super compassionate Joe because he's been through these tragedies himself. So he was like he was a cool grandpa, but he's also like the compassionate grandpa, and now he's like snapping at people after people just died. And it just started to show folks who he really was, and his numbers really never recovered from that. They never really recovered from that. Now, when Trump's first term, you know, it seemed like he was gonna do pretty good until COVID happened, and because they kept saying, "Oh, the market's gonna crash. The market's gonna any date, it's gotta crash at some point," and it just looked like it would kept going and going and going, and it was great. And then COVID happened, and of course, life came to a screeching halt. But a lot of the coming to the screeching halt were also because of policies that people in charge decided to make, including Donald Trump. And then, you know, the media, well, not the media, I think the Democrats were kind of cooperative with him at first. Like, I recall, you know, they'd be like, oh, Mike Pence is working with us. They're actually doing a good job. And the media kept kind of egging on Democrats, looking for division. And they said, I know you guys want us to rag on Trump. Like Newsom said something like that. I think Cuomo said something along those lines, but they're actually doing a good job. They're giving us everything we need. And then there was a shift, and it was, Trump is responsible for every death, and it just got brutal. It got brutal. And then there was the racial division tensions that happened after George Floyd. And it was just a crazy time, really crazy. And with the mail-in voting, it just made it really easy. Not just mail-in voting, but the pressure to get your ballot and turn it in, get your ballot, turn it, get your ballot, turn it in. So many people voted even before that final debate happened with Trump and Biden. And the first debate with Trump and Biden wasn't great. The first one wasn't great. But they pressured people to turn in their ballot, and you had a very kind of low threshold for participation for low information voters. And it just was like a perfect storm that they created for Biden to win. But you know what? Some of that funding for like the drop boxes and stuff, the stuff that Trump approved in the different COVID packages. So he was the author of his own demise. So yeah, they wanted to crash the economy in order to stop Trump. Bill Maher said that on his show. People are like, oh, Bill Maher's so reasonable. Oh, he said some reasonable stuff, but he still said it like in like 2019, 2020, something long, that he wanted the economy to crash because he wanted Trump to lose. That's where they were. And they did crash it. And he lost. But if the economy crashed because of tariffs, everybody was going to lose. All Republicans were going to lose. So again, I'm glad they switched up. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. So I wanted to talk about something yesterday. And I briefly talked about it at the tail end when my computer died. I got my phone really quick. But Vivek Ramaswamy, who is Hindu, posted a picture on his X account. He's running for governor, and there's a lot of evangelical pastors just praying over him. And a lot of people had a lot of different feelings and thoughts about it. So I thought when Vivek was running in Iowa, which Iowa got a lot of evangelicals in Iowa. And there's certain evangelicals, Platt, he was like the kingmaker. Like if you got his endorsement, you were going to win, which he endorsed DeSantis, and obviously DeSantis didn't win, and Trump was really mad about that and said some words that I didn't think were great, but we don't have to get into all that stuff. But Vivek was trying to appeal to these folks to consider him to win and stuff. And Vivek, he had messaging, it was like 10 steps. And the number one was like love God was number one. And to a lot of folks, it seemed unclear that he wasn't a Christian. Like I would say different things about Vivek that I didn't like on Facebook and stuff. And people would say, but Vivek is such a good Christian. And I'm like, you don't know anything about this man. He's not a Christian. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I can mention his policies and stuff. Like, but he's a Christian man. Like, no, he's not. No, he's not. But he'll praise like Judeo-Christian values. And he says that there's a lot of things that, that he finds in common with his religion when it comes to that. So I thought, he would mention when asked about or whatever, but I'm like, there's people who don't know. And he could be more forthcoming about it, I guess, but or people should know enough about him to not spread the misinformation about it. Like, you can just be like, oh, well, we don't agree with the religion, but I like his policies. No, I had policy issues that I didn't like about Vivek, and there was also personality things, like different. He was a little too in the meme world instead of like serious kind of politics stuff. And then he would he made his campaign about truth telling, and there were times when he was just dishonest, and I didn't like it. I criticized him a lot, especially like on YouTube. I did different posts, and they're like, why are you talking about him so much? And I'm like, because he's lying. Because he's a liar, and his like logo is like tell the truth. And so it was just annoying. It was annoying. And then like people would bring up things from his book, which I bought so I could like fact check stuff he was saying, and then he pretend it wasn't the way that it was in his book. He had and then he brought up an inheritance tax. I'm like, that is not the way. I don't support that at all. And so I was pushing back on different stuff. He wasn't my favorite. And saying he wasn't my favorite is being sort of light on it. I didn't like him, and I definitely didn't want him to be the president. And at one point he started telling people in Iowa, like, if you want to save Trump, vote for me, because they're gonna come after him. Now they did indeed come after him and try to take his life, but Trump, I think, obviously didn't like that either. And Trump ended up winning in Iowa. But I recall when he was running that he had some choice words for Nikki Haley. And I don't mean just, calling her Hillary Clinton and high heels and other stuff like that. But he had comments about her name, and he had comments about her faith. And I don't like that. I don't like it at all. How folks remember that or recall that. But he had made a comment about like, oh, it'd be so easy, if I just change my name and became a Christian or something like that. And he was talking about Nikki Haley, and he would even refer to her first name and last name, like original, like her maiden name, to kind of mock her sometimes. And then when people call them out, like, no, we didn't use her name to mock her, which he would spell wrong. But her middle, and that's what the left will do. They'll say that she calls herself Nikki Haley to whitewash herself, to appeal to the masses more. But Nikki is actually her name. It's her middle name. And her last name is Haley. She's married to a man. His last name is Haley. So why shouldn't her name be Nikki Haley? Especially with, like, she married her husband. That's her name. So I didn't like him talking about her in that kind of way. But then there's also the diss about, becoming a Christian. And it insinuates an insincerity that she's not actually a Christian, and she's changed her name and became a Christian to appeal to the masses. And questioning her personal convictions as far as her faith, I didn't feel was right. So I found the clip. Let me share that real quick. Oh, okay. I couldn't find it on X. I found it on YouTube.
God has a name, and Hinduism is a wicked pagan religion. And it's completely incompatible with America. So my challenge, I guess, to you going forward would be to say who this God is.
Run for U.S. president at the age of 37 as somebody who's been in business, who's actually, easiest thing to call myself some Vic Ramsey and pretend to be a Christian. Got other people on that debate stage last time who shortened their names and called themselves to be a Christian too. I'm gonna man up and tell you who I am, and believe me, your suspicion is off base. Questioning the motivations of what somebody is and get to the content of where there's an actual difference of opinion. So the question of whether or not somebody of a non-Christian faith can embody and lead the United States of America at any meaningful level is an open question. And my view is very similar to that of Thomas Jefferson, is that it's the commitment to the Constitution that matters whether or not you lead the country. But the beauty of our nation is that we're able to have different points of view.
So yeah, but the changing the name it'd be easy to do that, and he's alluding to Nikki Haley. So they've had a lot of beef during the campaign. Now there were things that Nikki Haley did where she would say one thing and then be like, no, I didn't say that. I'm like, man, we have the tape. So there were some things, where she wasn't honest, but there was definitely things Vivek wasn't honest about on the campaign trail either. And he would make accusations that question a lot of people's character for different stuff too. It wasn't just Nikki Haley. So there are things about Vivek that just did rub me the wrong way. So anyway, back to this picture with all these evangelicals praying for him. I think that it's good to pray for people. For sure. And when the Bible instructs us to pray for those who are in authority, so we can live quiet and peaceable lives. We want our lives to go well. Like, you don't just pray for Trump because you like Trump. You were supposed to be praying for Biden. You should have been praying for, the vice president. All these people were in authority, at least so they make good decisions that don't lead you into war and chaos and stuff. Now, whether they listen to, the Lord or good instruction and is another story, but it's still your responsibility to pray, and hopefully you are praying for people to come to Christ, to know Christ, and you're praying for their salvation. And I would hope that I don't know what were the words that were said. I mean, there wasn't a video that I saw, and Vivek is the one who posted this. But they're praying to different things. If Vivek is, I don't know if he's just accepting, but if he's also praying there too, he's not praying to God. Like, I mean, he believes that he is, but I mean, Christians believe that there's only one way, and there's different people of the Hindu faith who are commenting on different stuff like this, and they're like, well, Hinduism, that's the only religion that could really be there and accept all this stuff from all the people, because we believe there's many pathways to God, and so they can accept this prayer sincerely. And I said to that person, I'm like, well, you can be walking down a pathway and going down a trail thinking you're going to get to your destination, and then sincerely walk off of a cliff thinking that you're going in the right direction. It doesn't change the fact that you're wrong and you're going off of a cliff. So we don't believe that there's all these pathways to heaven. We believe that Jesus is the only way. Someone said, I think the problem is that Vivek's not necessarily using this photo for purely benevolent purposes. I think that's an issue too. Like, it's a pandering thing too. I mean, but if these men wanted to engage, I don't know who initiated the prayer. I would assume they wanted to pray for him. I've been at events that were political, and they're like, hey, we want to pray for these people here who are running for office. Let's come and let's pray for them. like, let's lay hands on them. I was at a event. I think it was actually like was it a prayer thing? I think it was a group of people who were coming together. It was something that was going on in Detroit. And different people came together and we prayed, and there were different people running for office, and we prayed for them. And like, I was like laying hands on people and stuff. And so it was a good old fashioned revival kind of time. But, so if you're in the evangelical circles, it's like, this isn't a weird thing, that would happen, that people would want to pray for someone who's running for office. And, Vivek is clearly, has the approval of Trump, and that's the person that a lot of people are going to stand behind. I don't know how much they've considered other possibilities beyond Vivek. Like, I think some of the things with his pharmaceutical company, that ended up going bad. I can't think of the name of the company, of the drug that he had. It was like an Alzheimer's drug, and there was investments that people put into it, and there was like a retirement fund for teachers that ended up losing a lot of money. And during the presidential primary, people were talking about it, and different accounts were bringing it up and raising issues with it. And a lot of drug companies don't do well, especially with like Alzheimer's and other stuff like that. I guess my concern, I don't think anyone's directly asked him, because there was a study that they did that he touted on CNBC about it passing or whatever, but it was like the same study that I don't think they did a new study. I think they just kind of moved some parameters around and touted it as a success. So I would specifically want to know, like, why didn't you do a new study, or did you do a new study? And if that's the same study and you just kind of move the numbers and parameters around, why wouldn't you do a new study before trying to get people to invest in this drug? So I think there's still some questions to be asked about that before I would want someone without any kind of governmental experience like that running a big state like Ohio. And if he passes the primary, I mean, Ohio's a red state. Maybe he's just going to win, but just because you get the Trump support and and people kiss the Trump ring doesn't mean that you're going to win. Unfortunately, a lot of Trump picks in 2020 and 2022 didn't do too hot. Well, I guess really just 2022 really didn't do so hot. So let me look at some of the quote tweets to see what were some of the conversations that people had about this photo. People were talking about Vivek and his comments about visas, HB1 visas. He said he's Hindu who thinks Americans are stupid and lazy, and he is an anchor baby. And his father lived in America for 40 years and isn't even a citizen. I thought that was interesting. That has nothing to do with the thing that they quote tweeted. So people asking, like, who are you even praying to, bro? Someone said boomers love getting scammed. Yeah, this is the person that I think I replied to. I love this. Hindus are among the few people in the world who could participate in prayer of another religion and be able to do that sincerely, because in Hinduism, we accept all pathways to God and we don't claim to have a unique answer to everything. So I already told you what I said. And I did also say, and if you are unsure, if you don't know the answer to everything, why don't you just go with the person who said, I am the answer? That'll cover your bases. Someone said my favorite scammy tactic of Vivek is to constantly mention prayer without mentioning who he is praying to. Hello, fellow God fans. It's me praying to God too. I want to talk to you about who you, cause it's basically all the same. Go Ohio. And I don't know, he will mention the fact that he's Hindu, but I don't know if these people do or don't know. But I would hope that they are sincerely praying for him, and they're praying that he gets saved and, you know, comes to know Christ and so on. Someone said, so a bunch of Christian Poles and businessmen surrounded Vivek, a Hindu, and prayed with him. The Christians there, if there were any, should have been standing aside and praying that Vivek finds Jesus and that he repents of his idolatry. What's going on here? Merely pretending to pray in public for cameras with a powerful, ambitious Hindu is especially cynical and sinful for a Christian. Actually doing this is blasphemous. In either case, all of the men here are revealing their lack of comprehension of and faith in the true God. I wouldn't say all that they said. It, you know, depends what they're praying. Yeah, a lot of people are saying that they're grifting. I mean that Vivek is grifting and that these people are being taken advantage of. I don't know if that's fair, but I would like to see, since he brings it up, people engage more. Like, I guess I'd want someone to ask him, have you looked into the evidence of Jesus Christ's death and resurrection? Do you find it to be credible? And if you do, then what's keeping you from converting? So I guess I would want someone to just ask him bluntly that, since he does make religion such a focal point of his campaigning, you know. And you can't like avoid Christians. You just can't. And you need their vote. But you don't necessarily have to, I mean, you kind of have to pander to them, but you could try to not do that and then win, I guess, if you just kind of talked about the policies and the things that you support. And if it lines up with what they want to do, then that's cool. That's cool. Vivek has some interesting ideas. I remember he did a video about he was talking on the Breakfast Club about how men should pay not just child support, but they should pay for the woman, like up until the time the child is an adult or something. And they're like, oh yeah, that could solve this stuff. And because it spawned off a conversation from abortion. He's like, men need to step up and do this. And he's like, I think the women will get behind this. And I'm like, that's stupid. I'm like, that would incentivize so many men to pressure women to have that abortion. And like it, or it's, you know, I did a video on it. You can find it on YouTube. I don't love all of his ideas, but he is very articulate. I'll give him that. But yeah, people should be praying for Vivek. Someone said, I will pray for him, but probably not with him. That's a good way to look at it. Anyway, I wanted to play this clip of Sunny. From The View. She's not talking on The View, but she said something about voter ID. And usually you only see like liberal white women say stupid stuff like this, but here comes Sunny in the clutch. Saying bizarre stuff.
The reason Democrats don't want voter ID is because they make it much more difficult for elderly people that don't travel, don't have a passport, poor people,
Mhm.
that don't have cars, don't have driver's licenses. So it's sort of a vestige of, I think, post-slavery laws where Black people had to prove their right to vote, and oftentimes they couldn't vote because they couldn't pass some crazy test or they didn't have the appropriate ID. It also affects women that are married. Maybe your passport reflects something that's different on your birth certificate or on your driver's license. So really, the bottom line is voter suppression, and I agree with him 100%. It's a brilliant notion that less voter ID laws allows more people to vote. And most democracies do it that way. We're the only ones that really don't do it that way.
Right. I mean, I think it's been considered fact by most that the more people that vote, the more likely it is that Democrats have an
Absolutely.
advantage.
Absolutely.
So I mean, it does make sense.
That's why there's gerrymandering,
right.
and that's why there's voter suppression, and that's why Republicans want this voter ID stuff.
There's a pretty famous viral video of this guy, maybe it's Ami Horowitz, who's going around like on a college campus asking people like, oh, are you for voter ID laws? And they're like, no, because Black people are too poor, they don't know where the Secretary of State office is, and just saying really, really obnoxious racist stuff. The bigotry of the soft bigotry of low expectation, that kind of stuff just is exploding in the video. And then they showed some Black people in Harlem, and then they asked like, hey, do you know where the Secretary of State office is? And they're like, yeah, it's on such and such street. And they're like, well, do you have ID? And they're like, of course I have ID. Of course I have ID. You need ID to get cold medicine. You need ID to get benefits. In Michigan, you need now not just ID. We have like enhanced ID. Isn't that everywhere? Like you can't fly on a plane if you don't have advanced ID. like you all need the enhanced ID. That I think that's nationwide, right? So you need all that stuff, but you're gonna say and they're saying that it's reminiscent of like slavery days. That's insane. That's insane. Usually you need like liberal white women who are bold enough to say something that's stupid and racist. So it's an IQ of 0. Sunny she's my least favorite one on that program. She is so flipping awful. So awful. I don't know what the rules are for every state, but there are states that if you need financially can't get an ID, they can help you. And I don't understand why, if the barrier was financial issues, why instead of saying, hey, let's not have voter ID, Democrats don't just say, hey, let's help you get ID. Let's help you. Why is it just don't show ID instead of let's help you get ID? What doesn't that make sense? Does it make sense? It's been a long time since I've had to go like get an ID like from scratch, but I had an ID before I had a driver's license. Just like a normal state ID, because I maybe got my license at 19, maybe. I don't think I was older than that. Maybe it was not. I was 19. So I had a regular state ID when I turned 18. And you do need proof of identification. Like I had my birth certificate, I think, when I got it, and I had like when I went to go get my permit test or whatever, I think. And I also had mail, like that had some kind of, proof of where I lived. And that's all you need. A lot of people don't have passports. They managed to get licenses, and she's talking about like, oh, women they get married. My youngest sister, my second youngest sister, she never changed her last name. You know, people like address her as Miss Hilbert or whatever, but she's technically still a bar. You know, she got her stuff. My mom got married. She still has her stuff. Got her stuff. She, you know, well, her stuff did. I think for a while she didn't know that her name wasn't changed, so she got that fixed, and was still able to vote. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. Whoa, there's someone posting a lot of links on Facebook. I don't know if that's a spam or what. What's going on? Yeah, that looks like that's. Let me hold on. Let me. I think someone's like spamming my thing on Facebook. I don't have a moderator. So let me just go to it real quick. Because I'm a block this person. I want to block a real person with this. It's like it's yeah, let me just sorry if you're real. Let me just block this user. There's like just link after spam after spam after spam. I'm assuming it's all spam, just one thing after another. I didn't at first. I'm like, is someone posting the ID laws in the comments? But that doesn't seem to be the case. But yeah, anyway, it's so crazy because if you go to Republican conventions, which I've had to work for people to vote, people bring their IDs, and I was a stickler, like, no, I need to see your ID. You want your badge? I need to see your ID. Oh, you left it in the car? I don't care if I know you. Go get it. Please go get it. And we were just sticklers about it. Like we are the folks who say you need ID. You got to bring your ID. Bring your ID. Okay? So that's what we did. But if you go to a Democrat convention, they also make you show your ID. They make you show your ID. And you know what? In Michigan, there's an effort to make people have to show ID. And one of the biggest hurdles is people assume that you have to show ID to vote. And we tried to like pass that before, but it didn't I don't think the ballot in it, we even got it really on the ballot. Maybe we didn't. But in our last election, we had people who were not American vote, and there was one like student who was maybe he's Chinese, but he was a foreign national student who ended up voting in our election, and the only reason why we found out is because he like kind of tried to undo it, so he got caught, and that triggered like an investigation. We found out that more people did it. Like, wasn't enough to overturn the results of an election? No, but one time is too many, and we don't have some kind of mechanism to undo it once they voted. So their votes counted as much as mine. People should have to prove that they are citizens, that they are who they are if they're going to vote. It is not the same as people having those tests and all those barriers to folks who had to struggle to vote before. And just frankly, if you can't pass the very low threshold to vote nowadays, you probably shouldn't vote. I don't want everyone to just vote for the sake of voting. Like, you can be mad at me and think that's controversial. I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to vote, like as not allowed to vote, but I think you should at least be informed if you're going to vote. And a lot of people are unfortunately not informed. And if it's that troublesome for you to get an ID, you might want to rethink your life and not weigh into global politics and all that stuff. if you got that many issues that you can't figure out how to get an ID, knowing that there's a presidential election every 4 years and there's a midterm election every 4 years, and they bounce, and there's other elections, special elections and local stuff that you might want to participate in. If you can't figure out how to get an ID when you need it to a license to drive, you need it for your cold medicine, you need it for your benefits. If you can't figure it out, you need it to travel, to go on an airplane, to cross the border, not state borders, but like, to get alcohol. If you can't figure out how to get an ID, I'm not crazy about you vote. I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to, but if you are not functioning on adult level at a high enough capacity, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. Anyway, I think that's all the things I wanted to hit before I let you guys go. There was this one video with the Austin Metcalf, but I'm gonna I'll table that because I think we did touch on it yesterday, but there were some comments that I wanted to talk about, but we're already over, and I think I'm starting to get some traction on that, so I'm sure there'll be more interesting comments to even talk about tomorrow. So let me just table that, and we'll chit chat tomorrow. Thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because it does cost a stream, on my site, all that good stuff, so you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it, and appreciate you guys. You guys can check out different books and stuff that's available on Amazon. There's a link in the description that would take you to a page where you can find my books and stuff. I have 18 altogether. 2 are nonfiction, like of course God is blatantly against abortion, and then I got fiction books like my historical fiction fantasy book. This is The Song of the Devil's Lips. This is a sequel to The Color of God's Eyes. And we got Dark Mermaid and other things like that. So go ahead and check out my stuff. It's really cool. Been working hard on some more stuff. So I'll be very happy to come out with some new stuff. So and yes, do pray for Vivek. Like pray. There's a lot of people in this world we need to pray for. But yeah, I pray for him, and I am very curious what his response would be if someone did ask him, like, have you looked into the evidence of the the life of Jesus is like basically indisputable, but like his death and resurrection, and how do you feel about that? And if you find the evidence compelling, why not become a Christian? So he's a very I don't know, logical guy. I don't like all his conclusions, but I think maybe sometimes you just gotta be asked the question, and it'll lead you down an interesting journey. So I hope a lot of these people who are criticizing him at least care about his soul, and it's not just to dunk on him. But Abel said people can figure out how to get an ID to buy weed. Man, I drove by an Aldi's, a former Aldi's. It's a weed shop now. I'm like, I used to buy groceries there. Now it's a weed shop. Man, I hate weed. Anyway, you guys, I'll see you tomorrow.